There is a moment so fleeting that you may hardly register its presence when your reflection seems to lag behind your movements as if whispering secrets of another life. You stand before the glass, heart quickening in that split second of doubt. Is it merely a trick of the light or something far more disturbing? Tonight, as you listen to these words, imagine stepping into a world where every glimmer of reflection could hide a trace of a long-forgotten past, where shadows dance with life and the mirror becomes a gateway to another realm. The story begins on an autumn evening when twilight's soft hues merged with the looming darkness. You had returned home after a long, exhausting day, the city's restless pulse still echoing in your ears, only to find solace in your modest apartment. With the smell of aged wood and a hint of incense lingering in the air, you sought comfort in a warm bath and the quiet assurance of routine. It was then that you noticed it, the reflection that did not exactly mimic your every movement. At first it appeared as if the mirror had simply misaligned with reality. You raised your hand to brush a stray lock of hair away from your face, yet your reflection lagged almost imperceptibly, like the tail of a comet trailing behind in the sky. A slow shiver raced down your spine as you dismissed the notion as a momentary lapse of perception, a moment of exhaustion. But as the minutes passed, that inexplicable delay grew into a series of subtle anomalies. A slight tilt of your head would be followed by your image pausing, as though considering the consequences of a gesture not intended by you. It is said that our perceptions can sometimes betray us, blurring the boundaries between dreams and reality. In that instance, the shimmer of possibility was more than just a reflection of your physical form. It was a dark suggestion that someone else, or something else, was quietly watching from behind the glass. Your mind raced back to childhood memories of stories passed down by elders, tales of double lives, mirror worlds, and spectral twins that roamed between the realms of memory and myth. One night, as the rain cascaded in relentless drips against the window, you sat before the mirror with a storm of thoughts swirling inside. The only light came from a flickering candle, the flame casting dancing shadows over your face. Every detail was magnified in the low light, the faint scars that time had etched upon your skin, the weariness in your eyes, and most disturbingly, the silhouette that hovered just behind, barely perceptible, if not for the lingering glow of the candle. The mirror's surface acted like a veil, thin and translucent, concealing mysteries that beckoned you to know more. In that moment of introspection, you recalled the enigmatic phrase that echoed in your memory. The twin in the mirror awaits the moment when identity becomes a prison. What did it mean? Perhaps it was a poetic warning against the pitfalls of self-obsession, or perhaps it was a literal truth about the nature of your own reflection. The lines between the self you know and the self that the mirror reflects began to merge into a surreal tapestry of possibility. One part of you was your known rational self, anchored to the tangible, while the other was the whispering echo emerging from long-forgotten memories or deep-seated fears. Over the next several days, occurrences became more frequent and difficult to ignore. You found that the reflection provided small but unsettling deviations from your actions. Sometimes, while you sat at your desk with a steaming cup of tea, your reflection's eyes would glance sideways toward the window, where the mundane aspects of your study room existed in quiet obscurity. On other occasions, when you walked across the room, your shadow stretched and morphed into contours that could not be explained solely by the position of the sole light source in the room. It was as if the mirror itself harbored a latent consciousness, a presence that yearned to break free from its reflective prison. The vivid imagery of your experience summoned memories of a family legend, whispers of a lost sibling, an echo of a life that might have been. According to old lore, every family carried with it a silent secret, a missing half that lurked in the periphery of their collective memory. This narrative was passed down through generations, a quiet myth that warned of the dangers when the reflection begins to choose its own destiny. You began to consider whether your mirror's behavior was a manifestation of an unspoken familial bond with a spectral relative, or merely the manifestations of an overactive imagination. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying, pulling you toward a truth that once uncovered might leave you forever changed. Night after nocturnal night, you would engage in a silent dialogue with your reflection. The conversation was wordless, communicated through slight shifts in expression and barely discernible gestures. At times, you would tilt your head slowly, watching your reflection follow with an unnerving precision. Then, without any forewarning, the reflected gaze would flicker independently, a frozen smile, a curl of the lips before resuming the mimicry of your movements. It was a subtle defiance of the laws that governed cause and effect, a rebellion of the self against the confines of the mirror. During one particularly drawing evening, you made a deliberate experiment that would change everything. Standing before the mirror, you extended an invitation through your body language, a slow, deliberate series of intricate movements designed to elicit a different response. You raised your hand, paused mid-motion, then slowly brought it down, watching intently for any sign of deviation. It was then that you saw it. In the darkened glass, your reflection hesitated, its hand hovering in a ghostly stillness long after your actual hand had moved on. The air grew thick, laden with a palpable energy that seemed to tighten around you like an invisible noose. What had once been a singular act of reflection now carried the weight of a deliberate choice made by another entity entirely. These interactions, though subtle at first, grew more pronounced over time. The mirror turned into a stage for a drama of dual identities, each performance deepening the mystery. With each glance, you began to wonder if it was possible that the reflection belonged to a long-lost sibling, a twin whose presence had been erased by time or memory, now seeking a return to a life that had been overshadowed by the relentless march of reality. Alternatively, you considered whether this was a symptom of a psychological break, a manifestation of the mind's attempt to externalize inner conflicts. The truth, as you discovered, lay somewhere in the interstice between these possibilities, blurring the distinctions of identity and illusion. One crisp, clear night, as you walked home beneath a sky studded with early stars, the question hovered over you like a storm cloud. Was it these reflections that were betraying you, a delaying signal of an inner turmoil, or were they a premonition of something much older, waiting in the wings to take the stage of your life? The weight of the existential query pressed down upon you, urging a reckoning of personal identity and the boundaries that define it. Every step you took echoed with the possibility that the mirror was not merely reflecting, but inviting a ritual of communion with an echo from another time. The journey into this uncanny realm was not one taken lightly. It demanded both an honest confrontation with the self and an acceptance that some truths are better left unexamined. Still, the allure of unraveling the enigma proved irresistible. The more you explored your own reflection, the more you began to discern faint discrepancies that spoke of an alternative reality, a parallel life existing behind the serene surface of the glass. Perhaps it was not a case of mistaken identity, but rather the emergence of a separate consciousness, seeking to step into the light of day, an ancient, dormant force reawakened by the collisions of memory and time. With each subsequent encounter, the mirror became a vessel for dual existence. You started to document the subtle shifts, the minute aberrations that punctuated your daily interactions. In the quiet solitude of the night, when the outside world lay hushed beneath a blanket of darkness, you scribbled notes and sketches in a worn leather journal. The reflections themselves grew more elaborate. There were evenings when the image in the glass appeared to dress in garments and expressions that were not yours, clothes that belonged to eras past, smiles laden with sorrow and mystery. It was as if the mirror had become a bridge to a time when identities were fluid and life was defined by riddles rather than certainties. There were moments, too, when the contact between you and the reflection escalated into something altogether more personal. Sitting before the mirror, you found that your eyes met with an intensity that seemed to transcend the barrier of glass. It was as if your reflection was trying to communicate directly with your soul, conveying a silent message that spoke of shared pain, long-lost dreams, and the deep, unsettling truth that one's identity might be less singular than it appears. In those weighted glances, you could almost hear a voice, soft, whispery, and imbued with the wisdom of generations, asking if you were ready to embrace the full complexity of your being. And so, the mirror began to take on a life of its own. It was no longer a simple instrument that reflected the external. It had transformed into a portal where every surface trembled with the promise of revelation. The boundaries between self and reflection blurred until it became unclear if you were controlling the image or if the image was orchestrating your moves in return. In these moments of liminality, the reflection appeared to carve out its autonomy, deciding in quiet defiance to stray from the mimicry expected of it. Each time this occurred, your heart pounded with the thrill of forbidden knowledge, a rush of adrenaline mingled with the fear of what lay just beyond the threshold of perception. One evening, one that would be etched in your memory as the turning point of this eerie saga, you felt compelled to confront the enigma head-on. Standing before the mirror, in the flicker of a solitary lamp, you slowly extended your hand towards the glass. In that pause between reaching and touching, you could feel the space around you densify into a palpable tension. It was as if the act of reaching out was an invitation to cross an invisible boundary, a crossing that might merge your world with that of the mirror. With a hesitant sigh, you touched the cool surface, half expecting to feel resistance or, worse, the brush of another presence. What happened next defied explanation. The mirror did not shatter, nor did it merely reflect your hand back as before. Instead, a ripple spread across its surface, sending shivers of light that danced timidly around your fingertips. For a heartbeat, you wondered if you had crossed into a liminal realm, a place where the reflection was not your own duplicate, but a separate entity that yearned to break free. In that instant, you discerned a fleeting expression in the rippling glass, a mix of sorrow, mischief, and an unfathomable longing that mirrored your own inner turmoil. It was as if the twin in the mirror had finally made contact, a silent communion in which two souls somehow entwined acknowledged each other. In the days that followed, the uncanny events escalated into a subtle transformation of your daily life. The mirror, once a simple object of utility, now cast long and enigmatic shadows into every corner of your existence. At times, you caught glimpses of a figure standing just at the threshold of your field of vision, a dark form that receded as soon as you turned your head. At other moments, you wondered if you could actually feel the presence of that other self brushing past you, a nudge of anticipation that quickened your pulse. The existence of a twin reflection was no longer a trick of faulty vision, but a recurring reality, one that defied the ordinary and made the ordinary sacred with its unsettling promise. This intimate dance with the mirror forced you to confront questions that had lurked in your subconscious for years. What does it mean to truly see oneself? Can the reflection be more than a mere duplicate, a separate consciousness forged from forgotten memories and silent yearnings? Was this spectral twin an embodiment of a familial legend, a lost sibling whose fate had intermingled with yours in ways that time had obscured? Or was it a product of your own inner mind, a projection of the self that dared to imagine possibilities beyond the rigid confines of identity? Each question deepened the mystery, inviting you to scrutinize your life and the blurred edges of what you believed to be true. One clear morning, bathed in the tender light of an awakening sun, you sat down to write in your journal once more. The pages were filled with sketches and cryptic notes, observations of slight shifts in posture, questions regarding the nuanced expressions captured inadvertently in the mirror, and recollections of dreams where the reflection stepped freely into the realm of living memory. The process of recording these events became, unexpectedly, a meditation on identity itself, a recognition that our reflections are more than actors on a stage. They are echoes of our fears, our memories, and our unspoken hopes. As you poured your thoughts onto paper, the question of whether the mirror twin was a long-lost sibling or something even older and more enigmatic continue to echo in your mind. There was an ancient quality to this mystery, as though it was something primordial, conjured from the depths of human history. Each time you looked into the glass, you saw not only your own face, but also the reflection of a countless lineage of those who had come before you, each one a spectral echo that cried out for recognition, desperate to reclaim its place in the endless tapestry of life. Yet, as the days melted into nights and back again, one truth emerged. The mirror was not a malevolent force, nor was it a benign window into another world. It simply was. It existed to remind you that identity is fragile, multifaceted, and often in flux. It was a testimony to the voiceless parts of yourself, whispers of old griefs and unfulfilled dreams reflected back at you with stark honesty. You realized that to dismiss the mirror's transformative magic was to ignore the very complexity of human existence. It was a call to embrace every fragment of your being, acknowledging that perhaps the twin in the mirror was not an intruder at all, but an intrinsic part of you, yearning for integration and understanding. The narrative that emerged from your encounters was not one of simple horror or isolated madness, but rather a testament to the delicate interplay of light and shadow, the dance of past and present. Underneath the eerie surface lay a subtle beauty, a reminder that even in moments that defy conventional logic, there exists an invitation to dive beneath the surface of everyday life. Every glance at your twin in the mirror carried with it the possibility of liberation, a freedom that comes from accepting that personal identity is never a solitary construct. Instead, it is a mosaic formed by every experience, every echo from the recesses of memory, and every mysterious encounter that compels you to look twice. As the seasons changed from the melancholic grays of winter to the hopeful rebirth of spring, you discovered a tentative peace with the enigma of your reflection. The twin in the mirror had, in a way, taught you that life is replete with contradictions and ironies. At times filled with disquiet and suspense, your encounters had ultimately revealed that the journey towards understanding oneself is fraught with riddles that defy tidy resolutions. The mirror, with its silent insistence on showing you both the celebrated and the hidden parts of your identity, became a revered companion, a guardian of truths that flourished in the interplay between the seen and the unseen. And so, with cautious acceptance, you allowed the mysterious presence to remain, a partner in the unfolding narrative of your days. As you walked through the city streets under moonlit skies, the quiet hum of life around you took on a new dimension. The reflections in windows and puddles whispered secrets to you, subtle nods to the inexplicable connection you now shared with a part of yourself that was both stranger and kinder. The twin in the mirror, ever present and enigmatic, was a constant reminder that while reality may seem singular, the essence of who you are is built upon countless layers, each one as real and demanding attention as the next. In the end, the chilling truth lay not in the fear of what looks back at you, but in the realization that the reflection is a testament to your very complexity. It carries the mark of life lived fully, the scars of past sorrows, and the luminous spark of hope that can coexist with the darkness. As you finish this account, let it be known that embracing the mystery of the mirror is akin to embracing all of life's paradoxes, the beauty intertwined with dread, the light intermingling with shadow, and the reality that sometimes what appears to be a haunting presence is simply another part of the delicate, intricate whole that is you. So, when you confront the next instance of a delayed reflection, when that twin in the mirror seems to choose its own ways, heed the silent message it offers. Listen for the quiet urgings of a timeless conversation between the self you know and the specter of a forgotten past. For in that exchange, there lies a hidden truth. Identity is a prison only if you deny the myriad reflections that make you whole. Open your eyes to the mysterious, the uncanny, and the endlessly complicated dance of existence, and remember that sometimes the most profound encounters are those that compel you to look twice. Let this story serve as both a caution and an invitation, a call to never take for granted the everyday miracle of your own reflection. In each fleeting moment, there is a hint of something extraordinary, a past that whispers its secrets, a future that waits silently behind the veil of the present, and a twin in the mirror that challenges you to see beyond the surface. Do not fear this enigmatic double. Rather, embrace it as a vital part of the luminous, ever-unfolding mystery that is you. Step forward into the twilight and let the mirror be your guide, a silent confidant in the pursuit of self-discovery, a portal to the realm of lost dreams and hidden desires. And as you walk the delicate line between reality and the mirror world, remember, every reflection holds a story, every shadow conceals a truth, and sometimes the twin in the mirror is the key to unlocking the profound depths of your own soul.